It's time to speak about the threats to security, which is part of the National Terrorism Public Alert System. There are 4 levels to this system. Low, terrorist attack is not expected. Medium, terrorist attack could occur. High, terrorist attack is likely. Extreme, terrorist attack is imminent or has occurred. The alert system is designed to guide national preparation and planning, as well as dictating levels of precaution and vigilance to minimise the risk of a terrorist incident occurring. On September 23, 2014, a terrorist-related incident occurred in Endeavour Hills, a suburb of Melbourne. This radical lone act was conducted by a young 18-year-old man by the name of Newman Haider. Newman, whose family comes from Afghanistan. It has been understood that the family has been associated with radical Islamic group called A1 Furqan.
A friend of slain teen Abdul Numan Haider says he remembers him as a quiet and normal boy.
He was quite popular and he was just a regular boy, loved his sports, loved playing, participating in all the sports. That's what he was good at.
The pair spent 9 days together at a Muslim camp last year. Hearing his friend was at the centre of Tuesday's tragic events has shocked Ibrahim to the core.
Threats were first raised when the young man started sharing photos on social media, which included images of members of the Islamic State, also known as ISIS, in the Middle East. This raised eyebrows from the national security. Even though the suspect was not viewed as a serious threat, local officers still wanted to interview him on his recent behaviours. Mr. Haider was scheduled to meet an officer at the local police station to have a civilised conversation when out of nowhere he turned into rage. The federal officer was stabbed multiple times in the face, neck and shoulder, while the police officer was slashed across his arm. This incident led to self-defence, which cost the young man his life by gun-inflicted casualty. Normal action was taken against the horrendous act. This terrorist act just shows how serious threats to security really are. Even though this young man was acting alone on his free will, there was no other choice for officers to act like they did. This is exactly why the alert on terrorism is high at the moment. Australia will continue to face a persistent threat on terrorism, espionage and foreign interference, including cyber security threats.
The Director General of Security, ACR head David Irvine, raised the terror threat to high. Consequently, today the government is raising the public alert level to high. I want to stress that this does not mean that a terror attack is imminent. We have no specific intelligence of particular plots. What we do have is intelligence that there are people with the intent and the capability to mount attacks.
National security is the responsibility of law enforcement and intelligence agencies, often working in collaboration to address threats and keep Australian citizens safe. It is important to distinguish the difference between the two forces and identify their roles in a broader security plan. Law enforcement agencies have traditionally addressed internal security concerns. However, some agencies operate on an international scale to address external threats. The term law enforcement is typically synonymous with police. The Australian Federal Police, Australian Crime Commission, and the Victoria Police are 3 examples of law enforcement agencies. Law enforcement is typically, but not always, reactive and addresses crimes that have already occurred. Intelligence agencies are knowledge-based and were originally established to collect information about potential threats to security. Examples of Australian intelligence agencies include ASIO and ACIS. The AFP are the leading law enforcement agency in Australia and responsible for protecting Australians from both internal and external threats.
25 search warrants were conducted across the suburbs of Sydney that included in excess of 800 officers. Those 800 officers comprised a range of different police skills and capabilities, obviously investigators, forensics experts, specialists, tactical officers, surveillance officers and alike. And as you've seen reported and has been said already, it is the largest operation of its type undertaken in Australia's history.
The relationship shared between Australian law enforcement and intelligence agencies is an extremely important aspect to safeguarding Australia's national security. The work that is undertaken jointly among members of both the Australian intelligence community and the national security community is invaluable to providing effective, concentrated focus and multifaceted security issues that may affect the Australian national interest. While agencies from areas of intelligence and law enforcement play individual roles within security, surety, and pursue independent goals, agency cooperation is paramount to Australia's national security. Joint efforts are currently being undertaken in an effort to construct the best picture possible for Australia's domestic security footing on a global scale. The joint counter-terrorism teams comprising the Australian Federal Police, the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, ASIO, as well as state policing forces and other relevant agencies, work together in an effort to prevent, respond to, and investigate terrorist threats and attacks in Australia.
Combat troops will not be returning to fight in Iraq.
Another such example is that of the National Threat Assessment Centre, being housed in ASIO's headquarters in Canberra. The role of the NTAC is to collect, monitor, collate and analyse all threat intelligence available to the Australian government.
Regimes dedicated to killing us, tyranny and terror, slaughtered thousands of weapons of mass destruction.
In a world where we are subject to constant changes of globalisation, national security has become a priority and governments find themselves confronted with the need to implement new and strategic protective policies. Defining terrorism is challenging due to its ability to alter from case to case, country to country. Its motives, targets and methods differ so broadly that it becomes hard to define all acts underneath one umbrella. A definition of terrorism could be described as a criminal act commissioned by a group, religious, political and ideological, or individual with the purpose to instill fear and destabilise the working order of a targeted society.
9/11. Ranked as the worst terrorist attack in U.S. history, mainstream media indicated that 4 passenger planes were hijacked by 19 al-Qaeda terrorists in order to fly them directly into the Twin Towers in New York City. Almost 3,000 people perished that day, and airport security has never been tighter.
ASIO's functions and powers are determined by the Parliament of Australia and set out in legislation. ASIO's functions and powers are determined by the Parliament of Australia and set out in legislation. ASIO is the only agency in the Australian intelligence community authorised in the course of our normal duties to undertake investigations into and collect intelligence on the activities of Australian citizens. They operate within a particular stringent oversight and accountability framework. However, ASIO has been under fire for abusing its authorised collection of data.
Before, ASIO was accused of playing a key role in Prime Minister Bob Menzies' re-election by encouraging a Soviet defector, Vladimir Petrov, to accuse the Labor Party of having connections to the KGB. It spied on the Prime Minister, John Gorton, in 1969, compiling a dossier on his drinking habits and personal life. ASIO then tried to destroy the evidence of its surveillance. In 1974, it came out that ASIO had infiltrated the Department of Immigration, using agents to reject visas and citizenship requests. ASIO still screens immigrants. One veteran of the department recently labelled ASIO checks as unreliable and politically motivated.
On the 15th and 16th of December 2014, a lone gunman, Hiran Moniz, held hostage 10 customers and 8 employees of a Lindt chocolate cafe located at Martin Place in Sydney, Australia. Police treated the event as a terrorist attack and negotiated with Monet throughout the day.
One man runs towards police with his hands in the air. An injured woman is carried from the scene. When it is all over, paramedics rush in. At least 3 are dead, including the gunman.
ACC, the Australian Crime Commission, supports all of Australia's law enforcement agencies at state and federal levels, ranging in a broad number of operations and investigations into serious and organised crime. These investigations include national security threats such as homegrown terrorist and transnational organised crime.